Yes, good. We didn't go past the time.
Okay.
Oh, we're live.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me put on my commercial. Wait. All right.
Good
Welcome
evening.
back. Welcome back. Hold on. I'm trying to get okay, but I'm trying to see what we on. All right, welcome back, everybody. Happy Black History Month. We're still on that. However, myself, co-host, and our special guest, we celebrate Black History Month 365, 24/7. But for the non-black people, we expect you all to lift us up and do some research and learn about us and enjoy our Black history and enjoy all the things that we've created that you are so happy to use and for your convenience. So, anywho, we got a special guest today. We're so excited, Sandra and I. We did mention that we're going to have a very heavy conversation. However, we want this conversation to be a robust conversation. We want the conversation to be a learning conversation and also solution oriented. So we're going to try to make it as not as we can't make it not painful, but we want to make it less painful.
It's gonna be what it is. It's gonna be what it is.
Yeah, we're gonna try. All right, we're gonna try. So if you like, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Don't just watch us on Facebook. Go on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Every once in a while, go see us. We need to bring our numbers up.
Like the page, like the page.
Like the page, like the page. And if you have any topics you want to talk about, if you want to come on and advocate anything or whatever, we're more than welcome to have anybody. Our email is raceandtheraces@gmail.com. Our email is raceandraces@gmail.com. So I'm going to let Sandra talk a little bit, introduce. Well, y'all already know who Sandra is, but if you don't know, she'll introduce herself, and then we'll have her introduce our wonderful special guest. And let Monalisa tell us a little bit about who she is, and then we're going to go into a video, and then we're going to go into our conversation. All right, Sandra, you're up.
Listen, I don't have much to say. You know what I mean? Like, as we talked about last week, we said that we're going to pretty much dedicate this show to the Tyree Nichols situation and just approach it on a lot of different fronts. The reform, the trauma, like how is it that we're doing things that we can normally do, and then we find ourselves in these kind of spaces. What kind of conversation should we really be having with our children? So that's just pretty much what we're going to talk about today. So that's why the conversation is going to be a little heavy, but we'll try to keep it as light as it can be. But it's definitely something that we need to talk about. But not only do we need to talk about it, we really need to start making steps, getting engaged, figuring out what it is that we can really do to try to at least bring our community forward, and also think of things that we can do without necessarily expecting something from someone else or a system or a structure that does not want to provide any safety for ourselves. So, that's just what the conversation is going to be. I mean, Monalisa really needs no introduction. You know what I'm saying? She's a community advocate, been doing this work like far longer than I ever have. You know what I'm saying? And, like, I'm still learning from her. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to have her come on today, because this is something that she knows really well, probably way more than she should know, but she definitely is really entrenched in the community. And so, yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about it. We're going to let her bring her perspective and let her introduce herself and let her tell you what she wants you to know about her. But I just know that she's been putting this work in the community for a very long time, and she's well respected in all circles.
Ooh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Especially the well respected in all circls, right?
Sometimes you gotta facts.
Yeah, like, because I demand it, because I put in the work. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate both of you for inviting me on. I'm really excited. Thank you for the platform. My name is Monalisa Weber, for those of you that don't know me. I'm an advocate in Broward County, South Florida, Miami-Dade County areas. And I mean, I'll keep it real short. It's just really, there's a calling on my soul. And I serve the Most High, and I want to be able to be an asset to the earth, and also teach others to be a caretaker. It's something that I just been doing, and the list is pretty long, but basically I advocate for criminal justice in the courtroom. I also do community work in the community, in the trenches. I teach the youth at a high school, the legislative process, the importance of politics, although it pisses me off sometimes where I want to give up and I'm like, F the politics. But at the end of the day, you know, when you know better, you do better. So I do work on being obedient to the Most High, especially when I learn new things. And I'm just really out here wanting to let the community know the importance of how powerful they are, or like showing them how powerful they are, because I think most of us are beat down to the point where we just no longer care. So I take pride in just really working on teaching what I've acquired, the knowledge that I've acquired, because I've learned a lot of things late in my life. So I want to be able to teach the next generation so they don't make the same mistakes that we have made. Just kind of make it a little easier for them. But yeah, I'm out here in real life, like in real life, just really pouring into our community.
All right, that's real, because she be out here. She be out here. I've done a couple of things with Monalisa, and this is the real deal. She's not joking. She's not playing. If there's a space that a child needs some advocacy, kids who are incarcerated. Monalisa is also a former probation officer. We're going to talk about a little bit about that too. And I, you know, well respected, as Sandra said. Been in a whole bunch of places
in all circles.
All circles.
All circles. I love that one.
That makes a difference, you know, because we could be respected in some places that are not respectable. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it is to be respected in all circles, and you can navigate all different levels, all different spaces, and comfortable in all of them, right? Because some people are only comfortable in certain spaces, but you know,
she does it in her authentic way. She doesn't change who she is. She doesn't change the way she talks. What you see is what you get in all spaces. And she has a level of respect that she demands, and she gets it, period.
I tell people, because people be thinking I'm tripping. I'm like, bro, listen to me. Like, I'm from the dope hole to the penthouse, from the courtroom to the boardroom, straight up.
Right.
That's it. Like,
it is.
That's it. And people be like, huh? I'm like, yeah, I navigate, you know? So.
Yep. Very important. So we're going to go into this video that we have to share. And once we go into that video, we'll start our conversation. Again, our conversation will be on the topic of Tyre Nichols, police reform, around that. And we will get into the conversation. I want people to see this, give you an idea of where our conversation is going to lead, but I want to give people some kind of background, okay? So let's do that now. Okay, are you able to see that? Is that showing yet? Hold on. Oh, wait. No, yeah, it should be showing. Is it showing now?
You have to play it. We see it, but you haven't
played it yet. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and we see it, but you need to play it.
All right. Okay. All right. Here we go.
When you talk to folks, what do they want? So I want to back up for a second, Joy, because I feel myself getting hot, if I'm honest. And respectfully to the other guests, I heard the word control quite a bit. And therein lies the problem. Because if we're talking about the ways to properly control a Black body, we're not actually identifying the fact that the problem is that you want to control the Black body in the first place. This is not about safety. This is not about public safety. That's not about serving and protecting. We're talking about a traffic stop. So the idea that there is a proper way to control a 150-pound person who is now dead is actually deeply offensive to me. The fact of the matter is people want safety. People want us to invest our money in the things that truly keep us safe. And I'm sorry, if we keep talking about training, millions, billions of dollars have been poured into training. And I say this as someone who used to advocate for these things, but I'm reminded of James Baldwin in this moment. How long do you want us to wait for your progress. Gentlemen, how long do you want us to wait for your progress? You are telling me that more training is the answer. There's been more training. There have been body cameras. There's been recruitment. There's been additional diversity. There's been money and resources poured into all of these things instead of the things that we criminalize people for, like substance abuse, like mental health, like houselessness. How long do you want us to wait for your progress? Because right now, this is certainly not what the people want. And we're tired of continuously being told to wait in order to achieve and experience the kind of personal safety and respect and dignity that we deserve. What is
okay? So so I wanted to play that because I think that I think her name is Miss Packy. I wanted to play that because for me, she said something that really kind of struck with me, and I am at that place too. How long do you want us to wait for your progress? How many times are we going to talk about police reform? How many times are we going to talk about implicit bias training? And so with the recent death of Tyre Nichols, and most, if not all, most people have seen the video. I know Sandra said she refuses to see it, and I completely understand. And she'll tell us why, because she mentioned a term last time, and we'll kind of delve into that a little bit. And I know Monalisa, this is something we're fed this all the time. We're dealing with this on a regular basis. My position doesn't change because the officers were Black. There is a clear issue with the policing system. And no amount of training, in my opinion, no amount of money you throw at it is going to change it, because the whole system is corrupt. In my opinion, they should dismantle it and start all over, but start all over with the people who are being most affected by that system. They need to have input. However, so we're gonna move forward. We'll let Monalisa give us a little information about Tyre Nichols. I don't know if you are very versed in what happened with him, but I'm gonna allow you to kind of give your synopsis on it, and then we'll go into questions. Sandra and I will go into questions and into our discussion.
So Tyre Nichols, may he rise in power. Very, very sad situation. I just briefly saw some clips. I'm not really into feeding that stuff to my soul anymore. I can't do it. Since 2014, there has been this whole thing, since Trayvon Martin. It's a constant, right? But it's a constant more like in our face, or we're just more alert about it. Right. So I just chose not to really intake all that. Sadly, I'm not surprised. Me personally, I'm kind of desensitized already.
So when you say you're not surprised, right? Are you not surprised of him being killed in a stop, or you're not surprised that it was Black officers that did it? What's not surprising to you?
That he was killed in a stop.
Okay, but were the fact that it was Black officers did that mean anything? Did that hit you different?
I mean, I was disappointed, but it didn't really hit me any type of way. But I was like, damn, bros, like y'all supposed to be different. This your people's he looks like y'all. But it doesn't surprise me. Both questions, it doesn't surprise me, particularly because these are men in uniforms. They're men, and all it is a uniform. So I'm not surprised at all. Every day somebody getting killed by the police. It's just we happen to see it. So that's why I'm just really desensitized, and I just don't. I want solutions. You know what I'm saying? I want solutions, and I feel that there are solutions. Am I really upset that it was brothers? Yeah, I'm really pissed about that. I am.
And not one brother, five. Five.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
That's a lot. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot. That's a whole, yes, the police and all that kind of stuff. But for it to be five, I'm like, it's five of y'all there, and none of y'all can see this is a problem. You know what I'm saying? If it was five officers, that's a thing too. But to me, for it to be five brothers there, and none of them intervene or make this stop or try to do that. To me, that was a little more extra. Not that I'm saying so I think in a black police officer having an interaction with an unarmed black person on a traffic stop, I have to say that I do have higher expectations for them, you know, and I don't know, you know, I might be absolutely wrong for that, but I do have higher expectations because, you know, we've also seen videos of black police officers getting pulled over when they're in a regular car trying to convince somebody that, yo, I'm the police too, and they're not believed, right? So for me, they had to have had this experience. Well, I would think that if they haven't personally had this experience, they have known somebody that have had that experience, that they should have had just a little bit more care and empathy for that young man, you know, just on that part of it. So I don't know.
I'm in the like so you know when you're not surprised because it's like yeah, but then you be blowed at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because like you process it, you be like really, because it's like y'all tortured that brother. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all tortured him, and I don't even know. I'm exhausted from the constant.
Yes.
But to me, it's also a daily suffering because just because we don't see it, I know
it's happening
every day. People are getting killed by police.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to start getting involved in resolving these issues. But the emotionalism drives me nuts. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. I saw parts of the video. And one of the things that Sandra mentioned, and I'm gonna turn it over to her so she can kind of discuss it a little bit, the triggering and the trauma effect that it causes Black people when we watch stuff like that. It's this constant. I almost feel like it's on a reel, right? Every day there's something, some kind of traumatic experience with police officers, some kind of murder, some kind of beat down. And I understand why Sandra didn't look at it, and I understand why you're kind of like away from it. But for me, when this recent one with Tyree, I think I was more traumatized with, well, not more traumatized. I think the trauma of watching what was the young man that was killed by the father and son duo? I forgot his name. Lord forgive me.
Ahmaud Arbery.
That had me depressed literally like for 6 weeks. Like, and I'm still kind of sick over it. Watching Tyree's video, the clips that I did see on social media, put me in such a funk that I had to force myself to get into a space where I can kind of like navigate, right? So Sandra mentioned a phrase, and do you remember that phrase, Sandra, that you mentioned?
Linked
Black people with
linked fate. Linked fate. So some people just say link fate, and then I also saw it as linked, like LINKED fate, and then I've also seen it as LINK fate, FATE.
Right, and I'm not sure if you heard of that term, Mona Lisa. But Sandra, give us a little bit of snippet of what that means. And
what that is that it basically says that people shouldn't watch those videos, because when we watch those videos, we experience the trauma as if it's happening to ourselves, right? Because part of it is that we know that it can happen to us too, right? So that's what it does. So people think that, oh, you only receive trauma from actually having an experience, but when you watch videos like that, it in fact traumatizes you too, with this whole concept that they call linked fate. You know, like I don't, you know, I was watching something and they were talking about it, and when she said that, I was like, I get it. And that's why I don't watch those videos, because I think I remember watching one like years ago, and it just like, I was like, oh my God, I can't watch it. But then I also watched the trials, right? Because I watched the George Floyd trial. Derek Chauvin trial, and then I also watched the McDaniel father, son, and Rudy, Roddy, whatever trial too. And so when you're watching the trials, you see parts of the video, and I'm telling you, I literally remember like watching the videos and in tears, right? Like just so emotionally overwhelmed, to the point where like whatever I had to do next, I had to decompress first Like I really had to process and then go do whatever it is that I have to do next. But you know how I didn't have a word for it until I heard that. And I'm like, yes, because if it's not me, I mean, I have brothers, you know, I have a dad, I got male friends, and I just can see it. And half of those guys look like somebody you know. You know what I mean? And it's like, if it happened to them, it can also happen to someone you know. And you're like feeling sorry for this mom or whoever, but the next moment, it's like you feel like at any time it can also be you, right? And I remember, and I remember when I stopped watching the video was when the Philando Castile. Remember Philando Castile was killed in the car with a kid in the back seat, right? His kid or the girlfriend kid was in the back seat, and the police officer shot him because he was honest about telling them that he had a weapon in the car, right? And let me tell you, at that time, I have twins, right? And my kids were little, and I just was like, I can't imagine being in my car and then like some officer shoot me, somebody with the children in the car. Like, how is it that they don't, like, officers who don't see any level of humanity, like, even if you don't care for this, if you want to be scared of this black man and think he's about to do something to you, like, how do you not consider the child that's sitting in the backseat of that car, you know, in a car seat? Like, so to me, it was just like, it was way too much. Like, it was just way too much. I'm like, I can't, I just couldn't participate in, feeding it, just witnessing that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'll read it, try to understand it, but I just couldn't continue to witness and feed into those videos.
So let me segue to Monalisa. So Monalisa, I know that you used to be a probation officer, so you've had some experience with law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And based on your experience with law enforcement, what did you learn, if anything, of how law enforcement move, and this humanity that Sandra is talking about? How is it that they're so desensitized that is not displayed when they're making a traffic stop? But just based on your experience, I know that you didn't have like the full experience, but what can you kind of impart on that?
Okay, so I wasn't a police officer. I was a felony probation officer in the state of Florida, right? So it's similar, because what happens is you have to be a different type of individual when you get hired by these systems or these entities. Because what happens is many people, and I call it, they fold, they bend, they sell out. They literally adapt that mindset or that culture of the institutions that they're in. You know, it's similar to like when we're talking about, you see some videos where somebody who's working the exit door, right? And someone's trying to run out. You got a young lady or a young man like really battling for, like, almost about to get killed for a bottle of water that somebody's trying to steal. They literally adapt. So when you literally, when you are hired, and I'll speak from the Department of Corrections, like, most people adapt that culture, that mindset. It is what it is. These are the orders. I don't give a damn if your baby's dying. I don't care about nothing that you got going on. This is what you need to do. They adapt this mindset. And when you're talking about law enforcement, because as a probation officer here in the state of Florida, if you are on felony probation, the probation officer will allow a police officer, you don't need a warrant. Police officer doesn't need a warrant for you to go into your home if you're on probation. So I would do what's called, when I was a probation officer, I only did 1 or 2, and it was for heavy reasons because of the corruption that I witnessed. And basically, probation officers and law enforcement team up, and they go visit people's homes. So in experiencing that, I saw how police officers move. Very authoritative, a lot of ego, you feel me? A lot of power trips, because they know that the people that they're dealing with, quote unquote, have no power. See what I'm saying? So a lot of police officers, not all, but a lot of them really get off. A lot of probation officers get off on the belittling. They get off on the condescend, like they get off on really putting people down. So y'all ladies know me now. Back then I was the same way. I'm going at it with my coworkers in the lobby. Like, how dare you treat this person this way? See what I'm saying? I was an outcast. I don't, any job that I am in, I am bending and folding. I don't give a damn, because without me, this don't exist. See, and what I'm trying to let people know is, in any job, you are the power in the job. You feel me? Because without you, they can't do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So if all police officers had a good moral
compass
and really stick together and bend and not bend and fold and be human, you could change the culture of policing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's we talk about systems. Systems are not systems don't talk or think.
Right.
The people in it is what make it alive.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's the nature of the human that wants, there's a lack somewhere in there, and they use all these positions to do whatever it is that they do.
So let me push back, Monalisa.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're talking about the humans and we're talking about the thing, but the system that is created, for the lack of a better word, majority of the systems in this country was created to keep a certain amount of people here and others here, right? Yes. And there are there's systems in place. There's policy. There's laws, protocols, processes. And the people, yes, I agree with you. The people who are who implement these processes are biased and tend to either, punish one group more than another. But the system itself, the way it's created, the laws, the policies, most of these things, and the people will tell you, hey, that's policy that I'm supposed to do that. Like, for instance, I'm gonna use an example. The governor decided that he was going to go arrest all these people who he thought were making voting fakely, or they didn't vote properly, or whatever the case is. And those police officers was like, listen, I'm just doing my job. They told me I had to come and arrest you. I got to come and arrest you. And they were like, over what? Like, well, you voted and it was illegal and whatever. And you're like, well, what? I don't understand. They even say, listen, this sounds stupid to me, but I have no choice. So I think the system too, I don't want to ignore the fact that the system is set up to keep the marginalized and to keep the disenfranchised there, right? Because they always fall back to, well, that's my job. That's what I have to, that's what they say I got to do.
And so that's the example you use. So me, I respond to what we say, right? Yeah. So like, even in that example, when a law enforcement officer suspect a person has committed an offense and they have an arrest warrant to arrest them and they go and arrest them, I can understand that, right? Because it's believed that this person has committed an offense. You have a lawful arrest warrant and you go and arrest them. The scenarios where we find people losing their lives, that's hardly ever the case. Right. It's hardly ever the case that they're truly enforcing a lawful arrest warrant or something. That's hardly ever the scenario. It's always like, what's the young man in Minnesota. I can't think of his first name.
Right, his last name is Wright.
Right. Mm-hmm. So they said he had a air refresher hanging out of his mirror. Mirror, that's illegal. The police pulls him over. He ends up dead. Right. This young man, they can't even say what traffic violation he violated, right? And then they end up snatching him out the car. He ends up dead. George Floyd goes to a store, gives people $20 for some cigarette. They give him some change. He goes back outside, sitting in his car, waiting, for his phone to get fixed or whatever, and he gets arrested. This ain't nobody where law enforcement had a proper issued arrest warrant to go get nobody. You understand what I'm saying? So like, if that was the case, you might be able to say, well, they were kind of doing their job. It got a little bit out of hand, blah, 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 blah. But no, that's not what's happening. That is straight up these officers making a decision to go mess with folk, and then people end up dead. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a completely different conversation to have, right? Mm-hmm. And so I read more of my news than I watch. And so today, because there was a rumor, there was a thing that was going around social media saying that one of the officers dated a girl that Tyree was working with, and that he in fact had sent a photo to this girl and some other people. And some people, initially they would say, no, that's not true. Well, today it was confirmed that that is in fact true. Not about the dating. They said he had a personal relationship with. They didn't say dating, but he did in fact send a picture of of Tyree Nichols to 5, if not 6 people while they were on the scene. That's some different kind of stuff, right? So for law enforcement, so now what it makes you see is that officers can use their authority to, to exact personal vendettas on somebody else. That is absolutely a totally different scenario with an officer believing they have a lawful arrest warrant and they're going ahead and executing it, and then something happens. So we need to make those distinctions about like what's happening here. These are people who literally the officers could have kept it moving. You know what I'm saying? And this person would have been alive today, and they made a choice not to keep it moving, and then now somebody's dead over some nonsense. That's the problem.
I agree. No, I appreciate the distinction. I think that's very important that we do make those distinctions, because it goes back to, or it validates what Monalisa is saying, that the system can't operate without the person who is there to implement whatever is going on.
Because I'm in my late 40s. You feel me? When I was younger, I always the system. That was always putting some form of blame on the system, of course, yes. But when you really out here when in working with the Department of Corrections, then, working for lawyers, being out here advocating, being in the courtroom, going out here, and you just see people and their behaviors. And what happens is these behaviors are in every system. You see what I'm saying? So, okay, we understand that the systems are in place, and the systems are set up for the destruction of certain people, right? But then it's like, I was a probation officer, so I could have been a mean ass bitch. I could have just violated everybody just because, right? No, but what did I do? I flipped it. You understand? I started helping people. Instead of torturing them and threatening them, I'm gonna violate you. You feel me? How can I help you to succeed? You see what I'm saying?
And isn't that what probation is supposed to be all about anyway? Isn't it supposed to be helping people to re-enter back in from doing time, or if you were in trouble, that is part. It's supposed to be part of a what's that word? Rehabilitation, right? Isn't that?
That's the reason why I applied for the job. Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Well, damn it, man, ain't no rehabilitation. Okay.
No, the system fails if everybody gets rehabilitated. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The point of a probation officer is to enforce the terms and conditions that you signed in court. Point blank, period. We are law enforcement officers. I am a former law enforcement officer, where we have to enforce the terms and the conditions. You need to report every month. I will be drug testing you so and so. You need to pay this much every month. You need to be living. You can't move without permission. You got to blah, 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 blah. If you don't do those things, we writing a violation report, sending it to the courtroom, and you getting a warrant for your arrest.
And that's another form of, I don't know, enslavement, indentured servitude, or whatever it is, right?
That's another form of slavery.
Let me tell you. So I remember I was in court. This was traffic court, right? It was traffic court in, I think, Deerfield Beach, right? And there was a young lady who was put on probation, and one of the things the judge wanted her to do was to get a GED, right? And he said he was doing it for her benefit. This is what he's telling himself. Oh, I'm doing it for you because I'm trying to help you put yourself in a situation where you can do better, right? So the lady's telling him, like, listen, judge, I have to work 2 jobs because I have a couple kids. Since I don't have a license, I got to take the bus everywhere. So I don't have time to go do a GED, right? And then instead of the judge saying, okay, I'm gonna, because everything else she did, she just couldn't do this part, right? He goes like, well, I'll extend your probation 6 more months to give you another opportunity to do that. And in his mind, he's doing her a favor. I'm like, yo, you just effed her up even more, right? Because now she got to continue to pay, and she's telling you why it is her life isn't set up for her to do this, right? Yeah, you might think you're doing her a favor by forcing her to do that, but at the same time, you got to accept the person's reality, right? Her reality is like she got to work 2 jobs, she got kids, she's getting around on a bus. And if anybody ever had to catch a bus in South Florida, that is like, listen, that's a job by itself. You spending 4 to 6 hours just taking a bus trying to get back and forth. You could have been making, that's a whole nother job in and of itself. So sometimes, you know, and because the other thing is people keep talking about training and this and all of that stuff. We'll have that conversation in a minute. But we also, so some of the training needs to come is that these judges need to really understand and kind of meet people where they are, right? So you think you're doing this woman a favor by I'm telling her to get a GED, but her truth and her reality in her life right now is like, that ain't nothing I could do. You know what I'm saying? And then I know you think you're doing me a favor, but by you not getting me off probation so I could stop having to catch the bus down here and take another 4-5 hours off work to come sitting here is doing me no favors, sir. You just further putting me in a difficult situation. And those are some of the things that, because we're also talking about solutions too. And that's some of those things that them judges need to understand. It's like, people can't do all this. Like, they don't have the luxury of like sitting in the class 4 hours for a month or 2 months or whatever to take a GED, you know, study for a GED and take a test, even though you think ultimately that'll be the best thing for them, but that might not be the best. The best thing for sure is not for you to keep them on probation and put them in a situation where they might end up getting effed up for real, and whatever progress they have made so far, they will lose because they can get violated because you want to keep them on probation because you think you're doing something better for them.
So,
and the crazy part is that they would argue, well, either that or be in jail. Because probation is literally your probation. I tell everybody is a jail sentence out here in the world with all these distractions and what's the word when you get enticed? Oh my God, I just had a thing. It's full of distractions and not desires, temptations.
Yeah. Yes.
All day, every day. So they would literally argue with that or jail.
And so even with that argument, right? With that argument, I'm like, think about what you're saying, right? Like, to me, it's always like, think about what you're saying. Because I used to be a public defender. I lasted a good 6 months, and that was it. Like, listen, I lasted 6, maybe 7 months, and I was done with it, right? And part of it was like, I think I was a little ahead of my time, and I'm that's me bragging on myself a little bit, but I was more into the restorative justice type stuff because some of the stuff they were doing, they make no damn sense to me, right? So say this person that's on probation, right? And you're saying, oh, we're doing you a favor because we could go to jail, we could send you to jail. Mind you, let's talk misdemeanor stuff because I made it the misdemeanor, didn't even get the felonies, all right? So you want to tell me that you're gonna send me to jail on a misdemeanor case? And I'm gonna tell you about the case that made me leave the office. Young lady was trying to steal some stuff out of Kmart. It was worth $234. Kmart got all their stuff back. The judge made her do 5 months for that, right? Because this was Sarasota. They ain't played.
5 months in jail?
5 months county jail. Because if you don't want to go and had to do probation afterwards, imagine that. Because if you don't want to go on probation, this particular judge, if you didn't want to go on probation, you had to agree to 10 months county jail, no matter the charge. Okay. So this woman, they put her in jail for 5, and you know how they got the game time, this, whatever. So she ended up serving like 3.5 months, but we had to because she was like, but my kids, I got to get them to school. So we worked it out where she would start her jail sentence once school start, and then for her to be out before Christmas. Okay. But let's talk about this woman going to jail. She got 3 kids. She was trying to steal some clothes for them, you know, but okay. Kmart got all their stuff back. So now this woman doesn't have anybody to watch her children. You about to go put them kids in DCF custody because they got to go into foster care because you done put their mama in jail. So you want to tell me it makes sense to judge whoever, it makes sense to all of y'all to put 3 of this woman's kids in care, right? because really somebody tried to take some stuff that they didn't take. And even say she did take it, it's worth $234. What's the cost to the system for putting a woman in jail and having to take her kids away from her because ain't nobody there to take care of them? And then, once they got your children, it's going to be a whole nother 2+ years before you get them back, because they're going to put you on all these parenting plans and give you all this stuff that you got to go do and all of that
special conditions. They're called special conditions.
Your children back, right? And then now you got her arrested on the crime of dishonesty. So half the job she could have done, she can't do, because you can't do no retail. You can't do no fast food because you can't handle no money. You know what I'm saying? So y'all gonna tell me that makes sense? And if it makes sense to you, then you're really interested in continue to having a system that basically enslaves people of color.
That's all.
Trust them.
That's correct.
And we need to see it for what it is. Because if you're thinking there's no way it makes sense for you to even threaten nobody with no foolishness like that.
That's what that is.
That's what it is. And the crazy part was, because I got to see twofold. I was a probation officer in the field, and then I was also an in-court senior probation officer inside the courtroom. So I would negotiate pleas between the state and the defense. I'm standing up for the people. I'm standing up to the judge. You feel me? Like, whoa. So I got to see it's a pure, it's a factory. It's just people coming. It's like a factory.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? Like, and
conveyor belt of people coming in. Conveyor,
and everybody is in cahoots. One of the things, if to the audience, if you are interested in any form of criminal justice education, y'all need to read My Lawyer's Life by Johnny Cochran. One of the main things that he talks about is that we do not bring in our culture into the courtroom. The reason why he won so many of his cases was because he brought in the culture into the courtroom. And we don't do that. Sandra, you spoke about judges. The folks that are within the system, they are in la la land. They're in their bubble, right? They can't even fathom the thought of why you can't get your GED. What you mean? They can't fathom that. They can't fathom. Mm-hmm. You feel me? Because why? They up here chilling in the bubble, kicking and doing what they do. You know what I'm saying? Doing their little thing, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, they have no understanding, no relatability, absolutely no. They have no clue
about how hard people's life is, right?
About how hard people's life is. At all. They have no idea. And it's taught within the school system because they go to all these elite schools. You feel me? They go to all these elite schools. So it's like, I went to speak at this school one time and I was blown away by the students. This was a university, by the students in the law program that were Black and brown, and they would cry because when they're reading the books of historical situations, like it was like if nothing, you feel me? Like, oh, that happened. Okay, well, let's keep going. They become these lawyers and these that are going to law school. They read it, but they can't embrace it. They can't empathize it. It's just a thing to them. So when they go in the courtroom, they become state attorneys or, well, public defenders, defense attorneys, a little different, but neither here nor there. It's literally like, oh well, they haven't figured it out. Oh well, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh well, like they should do better. What?
Yeah, like yeah, and that's part of. So for me, my experience was different. Like I really had I sometimes I feel like I have like two different personalities, right? Because I've done the personality test. You know how if you're introvert, extrovert, this, that, whatever, right? And if I test as the person when I test as my professional self, my personality is actually almost opposite of my personal self, right? Like it's not even the same. It's not. I don't even test the same. If I'm taking a test and I'm thinking about who I have to be while I'm working, and then who I have to be as just me, they're barely the same person. So a lot of folks, in order for them not to have that internal struggle, that's why they have to like pick a side, right? Like you actually have to, if you don't pick a side, you're literally going to be in constant struggle with yourself every single day. So you pick a side, and then that's the one that's helping you earn a living. So you're gonna pick that side and you have to take on that identity. But I can't say I assure you, but I suspect if some of those folks do the same thing, they're gonna realize that the law, particularly lawyers, and who you are personally, the ones who can kind of go on and soar, those mindsets may be more aligned. But if you're someone different, like how for me, it's two different people. So much so now that because I have friends who will call and ask me for legal advice, and I'm saying I'm gonna preface this conversation by saying that it's Sandra the lawyer calling you, not your friend, because I'm gonna probably have to say some things to you that you're not gonna like and you're not gonna agree with, and I don't want you to take it out on me as Sandra your friend, because the friend as your friend understand you in a different way, but the law looks at things a little bit more like, forget your feelings and all that kind of stuff, and forget fairness, because that ain't what this is about, and I have to tell you things this way. It's a struggle. And I have a few male friends that are attorney. They leave and become pastors. And I've hardly ever seen it go the other way. Like a person who was a pastor go to law school. But I can tell you, I have a bunch of my friends that I either went to law school with, went to undergrad with, that I know professionally. They leave the profession and they become pastors, because you got to be like, I'm gonna have to get right with the Lord at some point before this journey ends.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I can identify with that. Like, I got to be straight up with people when it comes to, like, especially in advocacy. I'm like, y'all want to yell and scream. Let me get that out the way. This is what y'all need to be doing. You feel me? And I literally turn into this emotionless, know the system. This how it works. I don't want to hear all the other shit you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it is a struggle, but I just never been one to fold. I don't give a damn about none of that shit. I don't care about keeping my livelihood. Like, you got to do right. You got to do right. I've always been one to want to do right. And that's why I've always been, I'm called problematic.
It's all right.
It's all right. And anything,
that's a badge of honor.
Yeah, anything that goes against what's foundationally there is always considered problematic. Black women, problematic. Black educated women, double problematic. Black advocate women are like just instigators. So there's all these labels. But one thing that I always I keep going back to this because I feel like it just talks to my soul. When Trevor Noah was leaving, one of the things he says, Black women cannot afford to fuck around and find out. We cannot afford to be in that space. And we're always in this mode of, got to get these things done. We got to be able to advocate. We got to be able to vote. We got to have our voices there. When you and that is such a heavy burden to carry. But personally, for me, and I can almost speak for Sandra too, that is a burden I'm willing to carry, because at the end of the day, one of the things you alluded to this, Sandra, or maybe Monalisa alluded to this. We got, because other races, other cultures, or let me take that, other races don't stand up for Black people the way Black people stand up for other races. Like it just doesn't happen. We had that conversation in the last show. We're constantly doing everything for everybody. I mean, I think we talked about the AP African American literature studies. I don't see a bunch of other races jumping up and saying, "How dare you strip African American studies?" Or how dare you, we stand with the African American people and their story should be heard too, no matter how much you think it's not educationally, what was his term?
Educational value.
No educational value. I think a slew of other races should have been offended by that and say, no, this is not okay. But we don't get that. What we get is we start something, we start a movement, and then all of a sudden other races
get hijacked.
We get hijacked, and then they take it as their own. One of the things Monalisa mentioned on our personal talks, is that she says, you know what, Nikki, I'm out here, I'm trying to do these things or whatever. She said, I just get so frustrated when my people don't see or are unable to understand or unable to digest where we're at.
Those are different things. Like, if they don't see and don't understand, that's not the same thing, right? Those are different things. So you have to be able to figure out where they at, right? Because if they can't see it, that's one thing. Now, if they don't understand it, now that's something different. You be like, okay, listen, let me try to explain, tell you what's up. And then some people, they understand it. They just don't like it. So you got to be able to discern who and what it is that you're dealing with, right? Because all those folks is different kind of folks, and you got to have different approaches to all of them. So part of what we need to do is, as advocates or people that's trying to like figure out how we gonna get folks on board to really try to make progress on our own, because this whole idea of us trying to get it from somewhere else, I mean, we need to go ahead and just F that, right? Like I'm serious, like, please, child, figure out how you're gonna do this, right? But we need to figure out who it is that we're dealing with. Are we dealing with people who just don't see it, don't get it, need some like enlightenment, you know? And not to say that you're gonna be like, I'm the one with all the information and I'm going to teach you. No, not that approach, but just be like, you know what? There's a different way to look at this, like, you know, and to have a conversation and be like, oh, you know, they might get it, right? And then you got another one, like, you can talk to them till the sky turns, you know, like all day, all night, they ain't gonna get it. And I'm not saying don't waste your time with them. They just got a different mission. You know what I'm saying? They got a different role they're gonna play. Figure out what that role is and let them go play that, and don't keep wasting your time trying to talk to this person. They're gonna have a different role in this whole thing right here. You need to figure that out, right? And then, you know, but what we need to do, especially as advocates or whatever you want to call yourself, is you need to have that discernment and figure out who you're dealing with, and then that's when you start having that conversation. So a lot of times we need to just sit back and listen more before we start talking. Sit back, figure out what's happening in this room. Like, okay, I could do some of that. Oh, yeah, now we're gonna send you over there, just let you pass out some flyers, because ain't nobody can't talk to you about nothing, right? Just go ahead, be that labor, and all of it has value. So please don't understand me. Sweat equity is big, right? Because we can't get a whole bunch of stuff done if all you got is a whole bunch of brains and ain't nobody willing to put in that work. But you need to understand who it is that you're, you know, what that person role can be, who it is that you're dealing with, and that's how you can start setting up a plan that's going to be effective. Because you can't try to get everybody on board, because everybody ain't going to get on board.
Well, do you think, Sandra, that our community leaders do an effective job doing that, making sure we?
No, because most of them are too caught up in staying leaders, right? Because one of the big problem is that once they get that title, they ain't trying to relinquish it. Even if they're not effective, it's like,
now, can you take it away? Because I never asked for it, I never wanted it, nothing. I swear to you, I'm my mama, who's no longer here. I came out here to educate people. That was it. Next thing you know, oh, you a leader, you a queen. I'm like, first of all, I don't want those titles. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm human.
But you're the person that would do the work without the title. You understand what I'm saying? Because you're doing the work without the title. You're different from who I think Nikki's talking about, is a person that want to be the president of this and a president of that and that, and then.
And I think that's what our problem is in our community, because we have so many people who want to be leaders, right? And enjoy the title, but don't want to really do the work. And that's why I asked that question. Do you think our leaders currently in Broward County do an effective job of identifying those people and how they and what role they play? And I don't think that we have effective leaders, to be quite honest with you. I don't think, maybe there might be one or two of them that are effective, but for the great majority, and I hate to say it, they're not effective. They're just not. They don't galvanize people. I mean, Monalisa can go into a community and galvanize 100, 200, 300 people. And we like, this is what we're going to do. You do this, you do that, or whatever, and get people to come. But then you have leaders who are elected by their community, who are begging. I mean, our actions, our requests, all of these are begging you to not only lead, but do the will of the people. Refuse to do it.
Because they had a different agenda when they sought office, and that's what we need to. And that's what we need to really be clear about. Like, we always thinking like, because don't listen. Don't half the time you can't only listen to what they say. You have to listen to what they're not saying too, right? Because oftentimes, especially people who seek public office, because if you're seeking and I'm not saying people who are in public office can't be advocates, right? But they really can't, because those are you got two different roles you play. When you're an advocate, it's different from when you're an elected official, because you got like rules of order and all this kind of stuff that you got to follow as an elected official that you don't have to necessarily follow as an advocate. You understand what I'm saying? So and again, some people do believe that you do better from within. I mean, maybe you can, but sometimes that process is slow. And then, is that you got to try to navigate them. That's definitely going to be inconsistent with a person that's about advocacy. because advocacy and being an elected official is not the same thing.
But let me push back a little bit. But isn't that the real purpose of an elected official? Because you become a servant for the people. You're supposed
to become a servant of the people with a whole bunch of rules that you got to follow.
Right, but you still have to work within those rules to still advocate.
Right, but sometimes the rules is the problem. Sometimes the rules is why you can't get nothing done. Because you're getting bogged down by all these daggone rules. That's why some police officers, they just go ahead and beat the people up on the street. Because they know, like, yeah, when they go to court, they're going to be talking Fourth Amendment this, Fourth Amendment that, because that's them rules that they're supposed to abide by that they're refusing to. And I'm not saying they're right, but sometimes they be like, you know what? I know this person got something on them, so they're going to violate a whole bunch of constitutional rights and then lie on the reports to kind of get things through. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't want to follow those rules. So yeah, when you go become an elected official, the rules can.
So what do we do as constituents and to help alleviate these rules so our elected officials can do what's right by us?
So, Monalisa could say, but I know the first thing we need to do is like stop looking for perfection, one, right? And stop being a fan of people. Like, it's too much, Truth. All these daggone fan clubs out here. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, it's the click for me. What do you think, Monalisa?
Shout out to that one, right? Lord have mercy. Fan of people. Lord have mercy.
Let me tell you.
That's a show within itself.
Oh, yeah.
I am a firm believer, once I started to understand the power of the people, like the only way we can change things is educating the community. So I'll give you like simple examples. This is how I understood a lot of stuff. Like while working in the Department of Corrections, I learned a lot. Like, I'm like, damn, so if someone writes a complaint, like y'all running around here like everybody's like shaking, like, oh my God, da-da-da-da. Like it's easy to rattle the cages, it's easy to rattle the fences, it's easy to rattle. You know what I'm saying? Some stuff happened recently in North Broward, like all these community people were sending emails to the city commissioners, and city commissioners was calling the leaders like, make this stop. See what I'm saying? This is from my experience. There was one time a probation officer was harassing somebody. This is when I started Probation Station, the advocacy, giving the voice of the people, right? She had done some prison time. She done got caught up in the mortgage stuff, whatever. Her restitution was $6,000 a month. Listen to what I just said. Her restitution was $6,000 a month. Mind you, she done did prison time now. Got out.
They don't expect her to commit fraud again to pay that, but okay.
But right. So now what's happening is she being threatened constantly. Now she's having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. Now she got to go to the hospital. Her father calls me. I sit her and her husband down, and I just let them know, listen, it's all you got to do. You take your husband, about 4 of your family members into the probation office. You take your notepad. You let the probation officer know you about to make all this documentation. You let them know that if something happens to your wife, to your daughter, to whatever, you coming out. Child, listen, the probation officer, by the time they was done, ma'am, don't worry about it. We finna help you to the best of our ability. Okay, let's see what we can do to assist you. The only way these things you're going to rattle is if the community comes in, if the people come in. That's the only way. Bring you 10, 20, 30 people in the courtroom and see what happens. And let them all be registered voters. And let the judge know, like, yeah, these are all registered voters. And we're going to spread the word, make sure you're not on this bench no more. That's the thing. We don't understand, man. They don't get the wrong one, the knowledge. Because I'm like, that's why I ain't no lawyer. That's why I ain't gonna run for office, because you're not gonna. No, I'm gonna use the knowledge, teach the people, because all we gotta do is flip it against them. Absolutely. I'm not waiting for legislation for 5 years, bro. Okay, like I'm not. If the police officers in your community are harassing you, first of all, everybody should know. Every police officer, everybody who's a resident in a city needs to have a roster of the police officers that are patrolling their neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Point blank, period.
Absolutely.
Okay, number one, we need to know who they are. Then we need to find out, okay, how many complaints do these officers have? Let 40, 50 people go into a police station asking questions. Come on, dog. Like, we've been dumbed down. we
Docile.
we are so tired and hopeless that we ain't trying to do shit.
That's true.
And let me tell you about the knowing the police officer thing too. So one of the other things I was watching when they were talking about this whole thing that happened in Memphis with Tyree Nichols, right? One of the ladies, she grew up in the suburbs, a different some good neighborhood, whatever good means, right? She lived in a neighborhood, nice neighborhood, and then she started working in Memphis, and she was surprised about how many police officers were like all around. She said every time I turned around, I saw a cop. She's like, "What is this?" She said the neighborhood I grew up in, you don't see the police unless you call them. You understand? So when you just said that whole thing about you should know the police officers in your neighborhood that's patrolling your neighborhood, I ain't gonna know none because they don't come in my development unless somebody calls them. Now we got a guy with the security truck that put tickets on the car if you know you didn't like do the mail or they worried about your grass or your mailbox dirty and all that kind of nonsense, right? So we got someone who does that, but there are no cops for me to know that's patrolling the neighborhood that I live in. Now my mom lives in Little Haiti. There might be some cops I need to get to know there, but maybe not necessarily on her street. Maybe about 7 blocks over. They kind of be there, like maybe about 4 blocks over. They be there all the time because they just be there all the time. So this whole thing about, yes, communities that are over policed or that's consistently being policed, yeah, you should know them. And I think if people were following all those kind of complaints, they would slow it down and stop it, right? And one of the things I was talking, because I had another student, I'm just talking one of the students I had. He wanted to be a police officer, but he had like 11 traffic citations, right? You know how he ended up with 11 traffic citations? Because he lives in a neighborhood where the police are always there. So they're going to see you run that stop sign. They're going to see you, switch lanes when you weren't supposed to. They may see you going 45 and a 30 because they're always there. Now, they do that all the time around here. You know what I'm saying? But there's no police to see that. So no, the people here aren't going to have 11 tickets, right? But somebody in an over police community is going to have 11 tickets that's going to have a negative impact on the rest of that person's life. So these are the kind of things that we need to think of, we need to think about, right? And I'm not saying some neighborhoods think they want the police, but they need to understand that having all those officers, you think they're protecting you, but they're really destroying generations to come, right? Because say, for example, you arrest somebody on a misdemeanor case that's making minimum wage, that got to go post $400-$500 to get out on bond. You just ruin their budget probably for the next year, 2, 3, 4 years or something like that because they can't pay it. You understand what I'm saying? So we need to think about it in terms of that. Yes, police officers, they seem to be helpful, but if they're in communities where every time you turn around, you seeing them, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing because they get to see stuff that they shouldn't see, and it's there to literally keep those communities in situations that don't allow them to progress because they're spending money they don't have on stuff that they shouldn't have to spend money on.
Well, on the flip side, when you're in an affluent neighborhood, right, and a police officer pulls you over because you're doing 35 and a 25 or whatever, do you know? And that's not something I heard. This something I know. Okay, they get a ticket. You'll never see that police officer ever come back. It's been years. You get one person to tell everybody what's going on. That whole community comes out to the police department and say, we are in our neighborhood. We are thinking whatever. How dare you come in here and just lacing up people, giving people tickets?
So I heard that neighborhood that had them PHO stickers on their car. That was basically code that don't mess with us.
That's
and
what
they had to get rid of them.
Yep. So my point exactly, like when I speak, I'm speaking about the hoods, bro. I'm speaking about like our people that are getting destroyed. But then another issue is like we got our people in affluent neighborhoods that don't come out and try to assist, educate, help us, like really get down and dirty with us, protect us with their knowledge, with whatever it is they got. It's a classism. I can go in about everything. It's classism. You know what I'm saying? Because you have our people in affluent neighborhoods. You have the church leaders, you have the elected officials, you have, and they look like us, but there's a certain class of our people that nobody want to be bothered with. You understand what I'm saying? But they want them to vote and they want them to register to vote every single time, though. But y'all don't want to be bothered with them, though. You don't want to make sure they got resources, because the thing is, we need a collective effort.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
any change in police departments, Department of Corrections, or anything, we got to wait for the laws to change and the policies to change and everything of that nature. But get you some people from affluent neighborhoods, a couple pastors, a couple of elected officials, a couple of people from the community, and have them walk in a building and see what happens. See what I'm saying? It's multi-level situations when you're dealing with community. But when here come election, they don't want to vote. They don't want to do that. They don't want to. Why? Go into their hood and go see what is going on.
Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right now, I'm talking to a brother who I'm so glad like he wrote down to earth, because I call certain people in our community the bourgeoisies, right? So as soon as I see them I'm like, all right, brother, you a bourgeoisie. You feel me? But then we got to talking, and he's like, okay, I may be perceived as that, but I really want to be involved. You feel me? So he lives in a certain neighborhood. We working in another neighborhood. And he was like, how do I, having the resources, the connections, and being a bourgeoisie, he was kind of joking. How can I get plugged in? Where do I fit in? What can I do? And I literally told him, I said, what you need to do is you need to identify the leaders on the ground that you trust, that are doing work. Let your circle of people know. You feel me? Bring them down to our level. They have resources. Bring the resources. You feel me? The money's what the education, because it is not always about money. You feel me? If you know an accountant, if you know somebody who does 501c3s, if you know somebody who do this, if you know somebody to do that, bring the it's not going to cost you money. It may cost you some time. But if you really want to make change, everybody got to come together collectively, from every classism, from the hood to the working class, to the affluent, to the elites, to the people in power. Like, it has to be a collective effort, but you tend to have affluent people look down on our people. You know what I'm saying? So what do we,
so what you're saying is things that we should do, right? Definitely have the communities working together more, right? And and I've done some of these legal clinics and stuff like that before. No, we need more than that. Like, how like some of the conversations that we're having right now, that's one of the things we need to do. Have like a town hall, have like a session, have people come in, do talk, and just talk about whatever. Sometimes ask some of that questions, like, again, I teach at a school, I do some legal stuff. And when I'm talking to some of the students, they be like, I didn't know that. I'm like, of course, they don't want you to know that. You know what I'm saying? Because knowledge is power. They don't want you to know that. But we can have like conversations like this where we do impart that information. And, I'm always, I'm very conscious of like how, sometimes somebody might have a little bit of information, then they get dangerous and they kind of go with it. I'm always careful about how I explain things to make sure that I didn't just give them a little piece that could F them up, because they're going to go and use it wrong too, right? So we got to be careful about those kind of things. But we definitely, like what we're doing here, we need to set up and have conversations like that, right? And inform the community of the power that they have. Because most people don't know, like, let you go try to make that person that's on probation develop anxiety and needs psychotropic medication, and someone threatens to sue the state. They are going to make some adjustment, because understand that there's a whole lot of things they can do. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of there's way more discretion than these people pretend to not have. Oh no, we can't do that. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. If you can't do it, somebody in this circle, in this system, can do exactly what it is that I need to have done. And understand that it can be done. They may not want to do it, but it can be done. And
it can be done.
And if they you show them that,
they just be betting on that we're gonna be quiet, we weak, we scared. You feel me? That's what they bet on, and it's working. And it's really working. And then there's no one to advocate for those who are in fear. You see what I'm saying? And that's where I think I don't even like to, affluent and all this. I don't even want to like deal with all that classism, meaning speak so much on that classism stuff, but it just as a collective. No matter what,
who have knowledge, they who have information, institutional knowledge, whatever the institution is, they need to come together. We need to put all that together, and and then inform those who don't, in a way that's always continuing to understand that they're human, they have dignity, and they should also be respected in the conversations that we're having. And definitely don't talk at folks always just engage in conversation. So yeah, something like that needs to happen. So, you know, and one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, because people kept talking about training, right? Training is important, but that whole training is crap, because officer number 6, who was the white boy that was protected, that the activists, the advocates had to smoke him out so he could be identified and then later fired, right? Because one of the things that's happened, like, I'm glad those officers got arrested, but trust and believe that they got arrested that quick and the video came out that quick because they were black.
Yep.
Don't ever think it was any other reason.
And those two things can be right at the same time. People need to understand that.
Yeah, they absolutely did that. But the white officer, who the picture that's floating around, he got this certificate in his hand, right? And the certificate that he had was for him completing his care intervention training.
All
right. Okay.
And see, and that's the thing. And what I mean by two things can be right at the same time. You can still have bad officers and they still be black. And then, but the thing is you have the bad officers, they get arrested right away, like how we want it to happen, but they're black. But these two things can be true at the same time. And the fact that the white officer who initially made the stop, if memory serves me correctly, left unscathed.
And also said, I hope they kick your ass.
Left unscathed until the advocates found out who he was. But he was not initially fired. He was put on leave. He wasn't
even identified. You going too far talking about he wasn't fired. He wasn't even identified. You know what I'm saying? And then he fired afterwards, but he's not even fired. I think he was put on leave, and maybe he's fired now. Officially
unpaid leave. They put him on unpaid leave. They didn't even fire him. They put him on. I don't know if they fired him now.
I think he might be fired now. But then that being fired could just be like, we're gonna have to fire you publicly now. Because when officers get fired, they 9 times out of 10 they contest it, particularly if they don't get arrested and charged and convicted of an offense. They always contest it, and then they get all their money back. They get rehired and they get all that back pay they missed, because if it was determined that the termination was unlawful. But I really was speaking on a piece of the training. He had a certificate in his hand that said he got care intervention training, but they called the fire department or whatever, had this man on the ground for another 15, 16, 17 minutes. Ain't nobody provided no care to him. And then he goes to, when I said the man, I'm talking about Tyree Nichols. They provided no care to him. He ends up going into the hospital and dying from his injuries. So even when we talk about the training, if the character of that person is wrong, the training doesn't matter, right? And then the other thing with the training is oftentimes these officers are being trained by people who are okay with what's happening on the streets. So do you really want them to continue training these officers? Because, you know, something different has to happen.
Has to.
Training, no training. At the end of the day is, who are you on the inside? That's number one. Number two is, and I'm going to keep saying it, the community got to stand up.
They got to.
They got to. And not in a reactive way. We must be proactive. And that's the challenging part. When Sandra, when you spoke a little earlier about discernment, right? I've been out here long enough to know when I speak to somebody, okay, boom, but I can identify. I work in the trenches. I don't know how people want to describe it. The hood, whatever, the poverty, whatever, no resource, it's just corner stores. That's where I'm at. That's where I feel that the majority of the soldiers are at. The warrior spirited people are in those neighborhoods. It is so challenging because they don't see any change. They've been in the same neighborhood for 10, 15. There is no change. So even when we're dealing with people who want to help or assist or organizations, it's never meeting them where they at. They want the people to come to where others are at. No one wants to walk in deep in. Then it's challenging to get the resources to bring in, because they don't understand that our people need love, detail, attention, excellence, patience, grace. You feel me? You have to be a strong soldier. Have I been disrespected? Hell yeah. Right? But once I get to know, it's not personal. You feel me? It's not personal. But when we talk about training a police officer, there's no training in the world that you can get trained in going in to give people grace and love and understanding. You can't, just like you can't get a grant for love, you can't get funding for love. We need loving, empathetic people. You can't train someone on that. You can't. Training is straight training. Your computer, you're going in, you're getting trained. Training is logical. You feel me? When you train somebody, you train them to shoot. You feel me? You training them. You can't train. How you train someone when you walk? It's like if you don't like dogs, you don't like dogs. You feel me? If you don't like cat, how do I train you? How do I train? Like, there's just some things you can't train on. Mm-hmm. It got to come from within. You got to spend time there. You got to see what's going on. Yeah. You have to have some form of relatability, some form of love and empathy. Happy people nobody don't even know what love means. You can't train.
And if they know it, they don't trust it. They be like, "What you want? You up to something?" You know?
Yeah. It's mind-boggling to me. And then there's billions of dollars millions being put into training. How about you take that same money and you pour it into these communities to see what happens? Absolutely. How about that? Yeah. What you mean you're going to train somebody who has hate in their heart for other people?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Take that same money and pour it in the community and see how the dynamics change right away.
Yeah. And they know it was working. That's why they stopped doing it. Because I grew up in a neighborhood that had a community center, right? I mean, I grew up in Miami, Little Haiti, Liberty City area. So don't get it confused about. I went to Miami Edison Senior High, Red Raider all day. Went to the Edison Middle, Edison Park, all of them, right? So, but we had a park where my brother learned how to play tennis at the park. Ended up going to college on a tennis scholarship, and he did some United Negro College. But he learned how to, my mama ain't paid for no tennis, you know what I'm saying? So he learned how to play tennis in the park. And now they barely have those. They everything now you got to pay for it. There's no more funding for those kind of things. There used to be like a YMCA in the area that everybody used to go to. Now you got to have a membership and that you can't get in. And they knew that those things were working. I have another brother who was in a band at school, right? So he learned how to play his instrument at the school. They loan you the instrument. All you had to do is buy the mouthpiece or the reed or whatever that you needed to learn. And he had something to do after school. So after school, while my mom, was working or whatever, he was in band practice till it was about time for her to come home. So they had to be home by themselves, watching way too much TV that's extremely negative, or wandering the streets because they had something to do. So and I remember when we did not have a lottery in Florida. That's how old I am. We didn't always have a lottery in Florida. And when they were pushing and selling the lottery, it was supposed to fund education programs, right? From the time those people got that lottery money, every year they're cutting something out of the school system, right? And they know by having all these kids with nothing to do, what they gonna do but get into trouble. You know what I'm saying? And so and that's where we should have like people, like private organization and a lot of these, wealthy, well-off Black folks, should be stepping in and putting these things into communities to really make a difference. There was a thing that I saw online today, and they were talking about how Jay-Z don't really care about Black people because he had on a $2.2 million watch at the Grammys or something like that, right? And I was like, again, I won't tell him, man, I'll spend his money, but I wish he gave me $2.2 million, man. That would be a game changer, right? Like I could think about all kinds of service stuff that could have been done with $2.5 million that would have literally changed lives and changed generations to come. But bruh, man, went on the watch. I hating on you, Jay, but seriously, but when you buy a $2.2 million watch, you should be putting the community. The minute when you spend that money, you need to be putting in a center in a neighborhood to match that, right? Like, and that's the kind of things we need to have people do. And again, I ain't trying to tell rich people how to spend their money, but they really need to do things like that. And I have a classmate who works for a foundation, and y'all ain't gonna know who she is, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So she works for a foundation that has like $200 million in like they have like they have like $200 million, and they donate about 10 to 15 a year, right? Like to and that would sound good, right? But it sounds good, but when you break it down, right? So they say they're giving out $200,000 grants to different organizations. When they give out 200,000, I suspect about 100 to 150 is going on salaries. You understand what I'm saying? So that money ends up only really being 50,000 going to the community. Not to say that 50,000 can't do a lot, but then it's not a full $200,000 impact. You know what I mean? So even when we have foundations that are set up to give money and do better, it's a whole bunch of like, let me give my friend this lookout. Because they pick and choose who they want to offer the money to.
Listen,
we could have a whole show on that with details. That'll be coming soon because I'm going in.
I'm telling you. So
I'm just listen. I wanted to say, because there was a couple of things you said that I was on a call today where it had something to do with juvenile justice. And one of the things that came up was that, most of these kids that are getting arrested or for domestic violence or whatever is more like about their parents calling because they just can't deal with the kids anymore. And one of the questions I asked, because I wasn't part of the panel, but I was in the audience, I said, well, listen, what program is there in the middle where a parent who doesn't really want to file charges, but they just want to get the kid out so they can get the kid some help or whatever, because apparently it looks like their last resort, they can't get resources unless they call the cops on their kids, right? And that's
crazy in itself.
But that's crazy in itself. So you have all these children who are incarcerated, and Monalisa knows this really well because she provides services in I think it's a facility where they house some young boys under the age of 18. Most of these kids are getting arrested for either getting in trouble, but what I found out through that meeting that I was in, parents are calling because they think they don't know, or there's not enough services that is provided to them to help them get their kids to where they need to be. And parents so when the parents call the cops, they come and arrest the kid, and now they're asking the parents, okay, are we going to go through it? One of the gentlemen that was giving the information said 90% of the parents do not want to pursue. It was really like this kid wasn't listening. I didn't know where else to take them. I don't know what else to do. I have to call the cops.
And you know why they calling the cops? Because they can't punch him in the face. Because if they do, the kid gonna call the cop on them, and they gonna get arrested for a child abuse charge. So it's a whole trap. Like it's a whole trap door. So
So what Monalisa says that the community has to stand up. It's not only standing up, but we have babies incarcerated on stuff because we don't have the resources and the help that we need in these communities to help these parents get through this transition that they're going through, especially when most of these kids are in the middle school. They go through this transition on that thing or whatever. So it's really incumbent upon the bourgeoisies, the elite, to come in and
not the bourgeois. They don't got to be bourgeois, because you can have money and not be bourgeois, right?
That's right.
It's the money. We need a little bit more for people with some for real servant hearts right here.
Yeah, right, and we need to as Black people not get to a space where now we're no longer near where we came from, right? And just ignore the rest. We can't be there. And I think there's a lot of celebrities who have been criticized for that. Jay-Z, Ice Cube, all of them have been criticized for saying, because they left us so long. They haven't been in our realm.
No, but they do different kind of things. Like, so because I don't want to talk bad about Jay-Z, because he did a lot with the Florida rights restoration, like paying off, fees and fines for people to get their right to vote and da. But I'm sure that, I want to say I'm sure. I suspect that there was some interest on the other end for him, because then they kind of dictate who they want you voting for and all. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of influence in who you help getting rights to vote. So he does do some things. But what I am saying is, though, they really do need to do more service-oriented stuff that's impacting young folks, right? Like getting folks right to vote. That means they all over 18. You're not talking about children. And half the time, and they know, like Head Start programs, when you're doing stuff with kids when they're younger, you make a bigger impact because you're already setting a good foundation. By the time a person is like thugging out and they 18, I mean, you might be able to get them back right, but they goony. Like by the time they 18,
but
in that now.
But your suspicion, right? When you say you suspect, so your suspicion is what the problem is. Your suspicion
is that they're not doing enough for young folks.
No, the suspicion is like when you do it, there is something behind it why they're doing it.
No, they absolutely do. They're absolutely when they pick and choose a cause, there's some benefit to them on the other end. That's the part where we needed to not be that. We needed to really be about like, listen, we're trying to uplift the community for real in a positive way.
So that's the issue that I have run into a lot, because I came out here I was just chilling. I was just serving the people. I don't know about no taking data, no numbers. I don't care about none of that. None of that stuff. I ain't none of that. As you start to see and you start partnering and collaborating with people, you start seeing the agendas. They right in front. And I'm like, well, what you doing? You feel me? No, that's not how we doing this over here. You feel me? Hold on, wait a minute. No, wait up. No. What you talking about? No. You feel me? So that's why I don't really work with too many people, because all that is out the window. Mm-hmm. You got to go in. There's a code, man. There's a code. Like, people ain't raised with respect. They ain't raised with no code. There's a code when you go into people community. You understand what I'm saying? There's you got to set a tone. You got to be respectful. You know what I'm saying? You're not going in trying to take over. They coming in trying to take over. You know what I'm saying? So,
and telling the people what they need instead of listening to what they need, right?
Right.
Like, ask them what they need and let them tell you, as opposed to you be like, oh, I know you need me to do this. No.
Right. So when Narnique, you know, we met several years ago, when she been to my stuff, she know, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all pure heart over here. People see the real, you know what I'm saying? And we wasn't funded. You know what I mean? Sponsor a child at $5, do this and this and this and that, because it's coming from the heart. First, I'm really on like that Black Panther type stuff. You feel me? You feed the people, you bring it, like you provide their basic needs first before you request anything. Because you going in there, most of these people going in there trying to request something. So if you're requesting something, you better be giving something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But no, it's always something. And when you start learning the game, like, I'm just like, oh, okay, this how it is. Well, damn. And another thing is, I don't really focus on celebrities. How many people live in Broward County? Millions, right? Imagine half of them people just giving $10. You know what I'm saying? We see things so far-fetched.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They'll go spend $10 on this. They'll go spend $10 on a lick. They'll go spend $10 for some ass, for, whatever it is, for some weed, like whatever your vices are. Like, that's the thing. We don't think collectively.
Right. Right.
We don't. I don't care how many people are here. I'm advocating. I love my people. We this liberation village. We don't think collectively, because we don't need. Celebrities are under a code. Athletes are under a code. They can't come back and help their community. There's contracts on all this shit. You know what I'm saying? Let's just be real about it. It's up to the people, the everyday people. If there's 500,000 people in that want to be part of something, you don't want to do nothing, give $10, $20, man. Let the people who really want to do something. Right. You know what I'm saying? But you can't. For me, and I know it sounds far-fetched, it's a no-brainer for me. You know what I'm saying? I don't see any obstacles. Like, because when I think, I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. All right, well, shit. If you got 200 people, okay, well, we can get that done. Oh, well, no. Then we allow organizations to come into our communities and extract, and then we don't demand or ask anything of them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, I don't. The police department is an organization. You feel me?
Yeah.
Everything is an organization. And the people are the ones that have the power to really dive in and get things done. Look, the same thing that happens in affluent communities where you can't go and police can't come and everybody get together. It's the same thing that can be done on this side of town too.
Yeah, it absolutely can be done. They don't want to do it. So we're running into like the hour and a half mark right here. You know, we could, like you said, we could talk all day. Sound like I think like 5 other shows came out of this one because there's some more things that we definitely gotta talk about.
Right.
You know, and so we talked about Tyree. We tried to keep it not heavy, but definitely imparting like good information. So one of the things Darnika and I had talked about is that we need to start putting in that work for 24 right now, right? So we definitely want to come and like, at least I know I do. I want to come and, you know, whatever you want me to talk to, you know, the folks you know about, educate them on certain things, you know what I mean? Not in like, I'm coming here to, you know, make your life better.
Not different.
But like truly,
let's make it
like
clear. Both of y'all are different. Okay.
Yeah, truly have genuine conversation because that it is something that we need to do, and we need to get people to have some more trust in the process and trust in the system. But we also have to like leverage our vote in a way that's going to be beneficial to us too, right? And if we can spend this time educating the folks, letting people know this is what you look for when these people come in here talking about this, that, and the third, this is what we need in return. You know, even if it's just like to become the person's aide or getting a gig on their staff, or you know what I'm saying, like whatever, you know, getting your kid like a legislative position or whatever, we got to get something in return for them. Because I've been learning about some promises that were made by some people that just got elected, and I'm like, you sold your soul to this person, right? Like, and it's crazy that they do it. I'm like, you ain't even need to do all that. You sold your soul to the devil to win an election, and now look what you got to deal with, right?
Right.
And there's a couple folks that's dealing with that mess right now, and it don't gotta be that, right? Because that person who you don't sold your soul to, they won't vote. You know, they could only vote one time. You know what I'm saying? And just like they think they got people, a whole bunch of folks got people. Folks got people that could have not put you in this crazy compromising position that you're in right now, right? And you could have really been doing the work. So all that to say is that I'm here, like we're here. We're ready to come in, talk, whatever. We got to try to figure out who these folks are going to be that we're going to try to support in 24 to make some of the differences that we need to see happen. You know, the Dems lost like the Florida House and the Florida Senate. That can't stay that way. You know, that really don't need to stay that way because it's just it's a problem now. It's going to be rough for the next 2 years, but we don't need to let that get any worse than it is going to be by the time 24 is over. So just all that to say, listen, just let me know where you want me to be, what we're going to put together, when can we show up in order for us to go ahead and make this happen.
That's right.
I appreciate that. Definitely. You know, I'm going to be calling y'all because I'm working on some stuff in North Broward. One of the things I wanted to say too, since the topic is on police, like in educating on a political level, you feel me? Like I find, and me as a newbie in politics, right? Because I'm not really into politics. Y'all kind of know that. But just really understanding the local politics, because I feel we get distracted by the
federal stuff,
the nationwide stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with police, the mayors or the city managers are the ones that are kind of like oversee the police chief, right? Mm-hmm. So we can vote a mayor in or out, correct?
Right.
Right. We can figure some stuff out. So it's really also the people learning the intricacies of what's right down the street to change the dynamics.
And not only that, like if they hire a chief of police, that's a problem. You could get them to fire them too. You see what they did in Miami-Dade County. They ain't like with that. And I don't know. I'm not saying that man should have got fired at all, but they ain't like him. And they put the pressure on, and the bruh man was gone. 6 months gone, just gone. Right.
So when we talk about
what's happening with the school board too. This lady came in here with the rah-rah foolishness, and they're like, no, ma'am, you gotta go. You gotta go. Won't care. You gotta go. So we definitely, it's important. We do have the power to do a lot more than we know, and we really need to harness that
and organize. We need to organize ourselves for common goals because we be all over the place too.
Mm-hmm. So the power is with the people, not the people in power. I've always said that. I will continue to say that because it's true. The power is with the people, not the people in power. And the more you say it as a mantra, the better off we'll be, and the better off we'll be in terms of trying to organize and create pockets of people who are going to be ready to be on site and get things done. So at the end of the day, it's up to us. So we need to really focus on organizing ourselves and working collectively, as Monalisa said, because we don't all have to agree, but we can work collectively to achieve a goal that's going to be the benefit and the betterment of our community, right? We don't have to all agree, but we need to be in a space where we all are on the same page and work collectively. So
shout out to Commissioner Joy Smith from my adopted city of West Park.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
happy
That's
Black
my next favorite city.
And one thing I'll say on the importance of the collective, right? And just right here, like I've learned so much from Narnique. I know none about like school board stuff, and yo sis, like what that mean? What you mean? You know what I'm saying? Sandra, we've had some conversations. I learned from you. See what I'm saying? We can learn from each other. Because that's what that we need that knowledge. Because this stuff, I'm on the ground. People be thinking that I know. All this stuff has been spiritually led. I've had to learn, reach out to people to learn. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. We need to impart knowledge on one another, and that's where the collective. I mean, it is imperative. If we're not working collectively, whoever has platforms, you feel me? Like me coming on here, or me coming on mine. Like we got to intertwine that, because when other races see that, then it's all about a respect factor. We are not respected.
Yeah, we're not. We're not.
I'm just being honest. Like we're not. And it has to do because we got to get it. We got to get ourselves collectively in order.
Absolutely. On that note, we could be here all night because this conversation can always evolve to something else. On that note, we appreciate, and I mean sincerely appreciate you coming here talking with us. I think we learn from you, and I know Sandra feels the same way. There's things that we learn from you, and what you've impart, it will always be with us, because the passion, the focus, that's what we need, and we want to emulate that, and we want to be part of that journey. I've already told you I got your back, 100%. I'm 10 toes down, 10 feet in, whatever you need. We've met, we've talked, and I'm all
worked together.
Work together, and I'm all about what you're doing. And Sandra was one of like, let's talk to Monalisa, because this is like important. People need to know. You have a lot of wealth of information in terms of probation, what needs to happen. You've been around law enforcement. Sandra's been around law enforcement. She knows about the law. Let's do it.
I lasted 6 months. Okay.
Yeah,
it was that.
I lasted 6-7 months. Period. That was it. I was out.
And one thing I'll say, when I was in the courtroom, the turnover. Poor defendants, man, they don't have in less than 6 months, they don't have 4 or 5 public defenders. I don't know how many prosecutors. Like it's anyway.
And that's all I wanted to do when I graduated law school. I only applied for PD jobs throughout the state. Yep, I only applied to be a PD. And I had a job, I had an offer. I went to the wrong city for sure. I definitely went into the wrong. I had no business trying to live in no Sarasota, Florida, because if y'all been to Sarasota, you know I had no business living there. I should have took the job in Orlando, but that was part of the problem. You know what I'm saying? They driving drunk all hours of the day and night. I'm like, you drunk at 11 o'clock in the morning? Like, are you kidding me? It's DUIs happening all day over there. Y'all know that, but it is, right? So yeah, so that was part of it. I literally lasted 6-7 months. I was done with this. I'm like, this is crazy talk, you know? And one of the places I was offered a job, arrested on a driver license suspended, you doing 364. You doing 364 on driver license suspended. Yes, ma'am. This state of Florida ain't no joke. South Florida got y'all thinking. The rest of the state, listen, it's different. You're doing 364.
364. Literally, you're gonna lose it all. You're gonna lose everything.
Everything.
You're gonna lose it all.
You're losing all of it. 364 on the driver license suspended, and they will make the third one a felony for real. Yeah, we
have work.
I'm telling you.
We have work to do, and we need to really reach out to our people and make sure that we're protecting our people. We have work to do.
It's different. And one other story on that. We had a guy, this is when I was in Alachua, actually in law school. We had a guy who was from Dade County who had 27 driver license suspended. 27, never went to jail for any of them. Got one in Alachua County. There's like, you doing 270 days. He was like, what? The offer was 270 days. 270 days.
Shocker. I be telling, listen, when I was a PO,
I'm telling you, it's crazy.
I used to tell her, don't go past Palm Beach. Don't go past Palm Beach.
Palm Beach tricky. Don't go past Palm Beach.
If you gonna take your behind a Miami-Dade, because you ain't gonna make it. You ain't gonna make
Don't do it.
That's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah. And that's another thing, real quick. Every county is different. It drives me nuts.
Yep.
That shouldn't even be the case, though.
It is. It's
Every the same damn law down the pipeline. Yeah. That's why we got the change from within. We got, in other words, the last thing I'll say, we have to put ourselves in those positions.
Yeah.
We have to become more judges, more defense
prosecutors, like, you know. And I applied to be a PD. If I knew then what I know now, I would have been a state attorney. I would have applied to be a state attorney instead, right? But I grew up in Miami-Dade. You the police, hey, right? The prosecutor, the state attorney, they the police. You might as well be a cop. You just a police with a law degree. So of course, ain't nobody trying to be no sellout police. So I didn't even consider being a state attorney, you know. And I applied to all the PD offices. And when I came to Dade County, I actually got an offer to Miami-Dade. They offered me the job, and I was like, I don't think I can do that. You know what I mean? I came back, and because I thought I was gonna be in the child support division. She's like, no, we're gonna put you in. I'm like, nah, I can't. You know where I grew up? You trying to get me effed up, you know? But if I knew then what I knew now, man, I'd have took that position. I absolutely would have, because oftentimes people think the judges have the most power in that courtroom. It's the state attorney. It's the state attorney, man.
Prosecutors, yeah. We need more good people. Let me rephrase that. We need more good people in these spaces.
Yeah.
And damn, what was I gonna say? I literally, it was based on what you just said. Oh, and I went into becoming a probation officer because of rehabilitation. I was like, oh, we get to help and rehabilitate people.
I know.
Needless to say, I quit. I ain't get no pension, none of that. I couldn't take it. I was out. But I really went in with the heart of, and I did help as many people as I could. You know what I'm saying? Till this day, I even up to 2 years ago, I got a message from someone who I supervised like 10, 15 years ago.
Wow.
Like, yo, you was whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, we need good-hearted people in these positions that really care about people. That's where I ended.
Absolutely.
All right.
All righty. Good night, everybody. Thank you all for watching. One of my PLTI cohort members is on here. Thank you, Michelle Granoff, for watching. Thanks for the support of the show.
Nice. And
so all the viewers, we appreciate you.
We appreciate you. I mean, there's some of us. There was about like 5 or 6 people holding tough. And we appreciate y'all staying thing. But we understand that this is a very important topic, and we all challenge you to be that voice in your community and to galvanize people in your community and to make them, not make them, but to work with them and educate them. Because I know there's
encourage and educate. But impart your knowledge to your community, and so we can work together as a collective to do what's right for the community. Because I always say, and I always tell Sandra and Monalisa, whenever Black people do something and it's something positive for them to win, everybody else gets. It's like gravy. It's like gravy on top for everybody else. Cherry on top for everybody. When we do something and we advocate for something and we change laws, everybody benefits. Yep. White women, you know, people think of like Black people benefited from affirmative action, but white women benefited more from affirmative action than anybody else. I'm mad at them. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying they did.
Me neither. That FMLA, white people, white women, and now white men are benefiting from all of that. Listen, I'm just saying, whenever Black people concentrate on something and we work for something to get something, and we are usually getting the crumbs, everybody else benefits. So I encourage you all who are on this live, go into your communities, encourage your communities, educate your communities, impart your knowledge, and get everybody to get on board, because the power is with the people, not the people in power.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Thank you, Monalisa. We love you, girl. Remember, we got you. Let us know when.
Yeah, tell us when you want us to show up.
Tell us when we on it. All right. All right. We'll see y'all next week. Another topic. We'll figure it out. We'll talk about it. But, you know, something's always going to happen anyway. So we'll talk about it.
No, something good. Something wonderful is going to happen.
Yes. Well, we hope.
All right.
All right, ladies. Thank you so much. Yeah, have a good night.
All right.